shit. If you're wondering why I'm holding this microphone here, it's because my crafty little lapel pin is lost. If you've watched this channel for any extended period of time, you know that my luck with microphones is absolutely non-existent. But we're here today to talk about a topic that I'm pretty passionate about. AEW versus WWE and the criticism involved with both of them. I should have seen this coming. I really should have seen this coming, and I think I did a little bit. AEW versus WWE, you're going to have loyalists on any side, all involved. But I've only really been covering pro wrestling since about 2014 full-time, maybe 2015. So I haven't gotten to see that. New Japan, to a degree, pretty docile fan base there. Impact Wrestling, a little bit more rabid, but they haven't had as much to be loud about, so to speak, when it pertains to competing with the likes of WWE. Now, that raises the question, do AEW fans have a lot to be loud about when competing with WWE? Well, what they have is a cable show on TNT. They have an opportunity that no other wrestling company has had in quite a while. And it goes without saying, anytime I retweet an AEW story that might be critical of WWE or something, I get at least one person in the replies that says, if this were WWE, you would criticize it. You would splay them. You would destroy them for it. What you have to realize is AEW is brand new. For a long time, there was not a lot of content or source material to criticize. There were comments, there were interviews, there were web shows, things of that like. But WWE has decades of content, decades of programming, decades of tendencies, habits, things that they would do, things that they would fall back on, and things that they would rely on that were either good or bad. Now, you can say or feel how you want about AEW programming or WWE programming. That's all up to you. The entertainment is subjective. The coverage isn't always subjective. We pride ourselves on being objective. I mean, I've moved people around on podcasts to make the podcast more fair. If you've watched our shows, you kind of know that. We've got some that advertise that they are completely negative shows, and hey, that's a fun gimmick. We like to do that too. But what we will do in our coverage of AEW and WWE and the criticism associated with that is be fair, because these places have track records. You cannot criticize something that doesn't have a track record. But then once that track record begins to develop, then you can develop those criticisms as well. One of the early criticisms I have of AEW is I don't know what's legal or illegal on the show. I don't know what rules are worth following or what aren't. One of the things in WWE that I criticize, I don't know what matters on the show. On any given week, will any 8-man tag matter or not? Well, we know in AEW that it does at least a little bit because they keep records. In WWE, it might not, because we've got a proven track record that they just kind of throw things like that away. They've got a proven track record of, well, maybe the third hour doesn't necessarily matter. A lot of the criticism of AEW is that they didn't have stories that built up into the violent match of Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega. Well, I disagree with that. They brawled at the end of Double or Nothing. They had a violent interaction at the end of Fyter Fest. They had a match canceled at All Out, which led to Kenny Omega questioning the guts, the manhood of Jon Moxley after he had that done for years by detractors in WWE because of the nature of his character. They got into one tag match, and things came unglued. Weapons everywhere. And then they had this very violent match, which wasn't quite my style, at AEW Full Gear. Do I think it was over the top? Yeah, I sure do, and I said as much on our show. But do I think it was without reason? No, I don't. Another criticism that I have levied against AEW is their agenting, their coaching. Not against anybody specifically, because I haven't heard who has agented or produced any particular matches. But when you see a Canadian Destroyer in the pre-show match of a pay-per-view, and then it's used as a high spot post-match to get over a legend like Ricky Morton, wow, he can do a Canadian Destroyer. That's awesome. That would mean a lot more if it hadn't just happened in that previous match as well. So that's something that AEW should probably work on, solidify, and shore up. with the amount of content that WWE has, they fall victim to that sometimes too. You see a tope con hilo or a suicide dive or something like that, which have become a common move, so to speak. I do wish that would calm down, but I don't see that as much with WWE as I do AEW. What I can promise you is there is no media-wide conspiracy to criticize WWE. I think most of us that cover pro wrestling would love to cover something that we truly enjoy at all times. I wish our reviews were completely positive, honestly, not because I want positive reviews, because I want fair reviews. And I wish that the content that this was all based off of was so unanimously good that we didn't have much of a choice but to enjoy it and put it over. I want to cover great stuff. I don't want to cover mediocre stuff. And unfortunately, WWE often has so much content that the majority of it is bound to be mediocre. You can blame that on Vince McMahon, you can blame that on a writing team, you can blame that on whatever you want. But it's the sad reality. Numbers reflect it, viewership reflects it, interest reflects it. Now, what is reflected in AEW's numbers? I don't know yet. It hasn't been very long. But I can tell you what is reflected in AEW. Thus far, things have seemed at least important. We know that their tag titles are important. We know that their world title is important. We know that they're making their women's champion very strong. We know that wins and losses matter, so a match that might not seem so important on AEW Dark might pay off down the line. Do I think that WWE needs to go that route? No, I don't. But I do think that those that are saying, well, you would criticize WWE for this, well, I don't know. I hear a lot of people complaining about AEW taking shots at WWE all the time. Is it a little much for my liking? Yeah. Do I give a shit? No. Should you? Well, that's up to you. But to act like WWE hadn't done this for years, that's just untrue. Vince McMahon would write letters to newspapers and have them run criticizing WCW. They would set aside entire days and hire actors to portray Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan, and clown them. They had Jim Cornette go on a rant on video on Raw about Piper and Hogan. They drove a Jeep to WCW Nitro. And it doesn't stop there either. WCW gave away results of WWF Raw for a long time. They would run commercials, or at least video clips, of their current stars beating guys that left for WWF and say, this is where the big boys play. And they were hardly alone in that either. Impact Wrestling, TNA, they did it too. They sent Abyss, Shane Douglas, Conan, and Tracy Brooks to a WWE commercial shoot with balloons and cookies and all this stuff. Then they had the terrible idea to name Billy Gunn and Road Dogg the Voodoo Kin Mafia. Well, why would they do that? Because Vince McMahon's initials are VKM. Years before that, it happened as well. The legendary Soul Train Jones, better known to you guys as Virgil, was named Virgil because that's the real name of Dusty Rhodes, Virgil Runnels. When he went to WCW, they took the shot back. They named him Vincent because of Vincent McMahon. They renamed him Shane because of Shane McMahon. This stuff has been there for years. It's nothing new, and I think it's healthy. I like it. You want competition. You want comparison. You want criticism. Because what that does is motivate people to be better. It ain't always fun, and I'll be the first to say that. But it does breed competition and creativity. Leave a thumbs up. Let me know what you think, unless you disagree with me, because I don't care. We're out.